So maybe today we can do a little bit more traditionally, actually. There's a long list of preliminary practices that one can engage in before meditation, but specifically with the Lamrim meditation, stages of the path, which is not exactly what we're doing, but it's still very good to sometimes follow that traditional outline, because it has a purpose, obviously. They're not, these prayers and practices are not just to pass the time, to fill the time. They're to create the right atmosphere and to, more importantly, to engage in the practices of what are called accumulation and purification. There's a famous story in the Yellow Hat tradition, Gelugpa tradition, of Lama Tsongkhapa, who's, that's the statue in the middle there, who's the founder of the Gelugpa school. He had a very close connection with the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, Manjushri with the sword of wisdom. And he once asked Manjushri for advice. He had that kind of very special connection. He had visions of Manjushri. Manjushri would give him teachings in these so-called pure visions. There are impure visions, obviously, which people like me have, which are more like very fuzzy or some kind of fantasy. But beings like Tsongkhapa had pure visions. And in his pure vision, Manjushri told him something, because Tsongkhapa had previously asked Manjushri, how do I engage in practice which will yield not just some kind of intellectual knowledge, but realizations, deep understanding and realizations, so that it becomes totally embodied within one, you might say, in one's mind, and has a transformative effect on one's life. How does one ensure that that happens? And so Manjushri said to him that you need to purify your impure karmic, tendencies. You have to purify your karma, the unwholesome actions and their imprints. You have to accumulate positive energy, and you have to make devoted prayers, aspirational prayers to your, what we call in, I suppose, the Hindu tradition is called Ishta Devta. So your own personal deity is not a good word in one way, but here it refers to the Buddha that you feel closest to. So some feel close to Buddha of compassion, some closer to Manjushri, whatever. Or you can just, feel that you are close to Shakyamuni Buddha. So make aspirational prayers to a Buddha that you feel close to in a very devoted way. So these three: purification, accumulation, and aspirational prayers, devoted aspirational prayers to, and those prayers elicit, they bring about blessings, inspiring strength of the Buddha energy, you could say. Like at the fourth line of the immeasurable prayers, we say, please, Guru Buddhas, bestow your inspiring strength, to enable me to do such and such. So here, those three. So these preliminary practices, you see, are for that purpose, to elicit the blessings, to purify the stains that are on our consciousness, and to bring about a very vast store of positive potential, accumulating what we call punya, or merit, positive energy. So this is very important. And then I suppose if one were to really engage in that powerfully on a regular basis, then when one meditates, there is, you could say, more effect. And it's possible to generate powerful realizations. But that is obviously rather difficult in our ordinary modern day-to-day life because we're so busy, we're preoccupied, and which is also why meditation retreat is so important and emphasized for those who really want to make a difference, who want the teachings to make a difference to them in their life. Retreat is essential. It could be a couple of days, it could be a week, it could be a month or more. Some people do 3 months, some people do 3 years, So, and some people do longer. But whatever the case, one needs to focus strongly on practice of this kind with, dedication and regularity. But in our case, with our lives, our work, if we can do something regularly every day, if possible, early morning, then that is good. That is very good. Okay, so we'll engage in these prayers by briefly reflecting on the motivation in a traditional way. And I won't give that much explanation, but a little bit. And then we'll reflect on the so-called 7-limb prayer, which we are familiar with from when we do puja. And then we'll engage in some silent practice for a little while, because there'll have been a lot of words, quite a lot of words. And then we'll investigate our topic for a little while, continue with our exploration of the Buddha nature. Okay. So the traditional formula, if you like, or prayer in the Mahayana tradition, as preserved by the Tibetans, goes like this, the simple version of it. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. From the positive energy that I generate by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So there's quite a lot there. It involves refuge, which means putting one's faith and trust and in the Buddha, is the doctor, his teachings, the medicine, and the spiritual assembly, the companions on the path, who are like the doctors and nurses who help us to take the medicine of the Dharma, encourage us to do so. And of course, that's very deep practice. One could talk a lot about refuge, but the main thing here is, what are we relying on in life? Some people rely on money. We're talking about primary factors. It's not, one may need money, of course, one may need a lot of money, but what are we taking refuge in, in life? What are we relying on the most? Some money, some fame, status, some pleasure, some, I don't know, it could be anything, sport, it could be anything. One takes refuge in substances. But here we're taking refuge in the Buddha as the guide, the Margdarshak, the path, someone who shows us the path. And in the Dharma. So that's Dharma is the truth, really, the way things are. That's the ultimate, really, the emptiness and compassion, dependent arising, the obliteration of ego and self-cherishing thought, self-grasping ignorance. So actually, the dharma, to actually take refuge in dharma is something quite unusual. To do it properly, I suppose, because it is going to really blow our self-cherishing attitude and our self-grasping ignorance to bits. It's not going to be very pleasant. It's, as one teacher said, a little bit like an operation without anesthetic. So we have to have that kind of determination and courage to really appreciate and practice the dharma, because it's not good news for the habitual pattern of self-grasping ignorance. It's aimed to destroy that. So, you know, as another teacher said, it torpedoes our complacency. The dharma is designed to turn our life upside down, which is not very pleasant initially. For the ego, it is like, it is awful. Nobody wants to die, least of all the ego. And then we take refuge in the Sangha until we're enlightened. Of course, when we're enlightened, we won't need to take refuge in anything. We will have reached, we ourselves will be a refuge for others. Then it's from the positive energy that I generate. So there's this constant process of generating positivity, positive energy, spiritual energy, from the practice of giving and the other perfections, morality, patience, energy, or joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. So through practicing these, may I attain the state of a Buddha. May that enable me to wake up completely. In order to do what? In order to benefit all sentient beings. So it's not Buddhahood for one's own sake. You know, it's not Buddhahood so we can live in eternal bliss or something. There will be that, but it's always together with spontaneous activity for the sake of others. That's what Buddhahood is. And it happens because we've created the causes for that through lifetime after lifetime of prayers and practices aimed at that very objective. So we create the cause, you get the result. You don't create the cause, don't get the result. Create a different cause, you get a different result. So here we're not aiming for nirvana, not aiming for personal peace. The activities of giving and so forth are engaged in with the intention of benefiting sentient beings, not just for one's own sake. So just to take the example of giving, we don't have time to go through all of them. It could be the giving of material objects, material goods, you know, of all kinds, food, clothing, shelter, money, whatever people need of material goods. It can be the offering of freedom from fear is one of them. So we help people in whatever way we can when they're in difficulties to help them to be free of fear and anxiety and so forth. Then there's the giving of loving kindness, the giving of love, giving of love and affection and so forth. And then there's the giving of the dharma, the giving of the teachings, which is the supreme method, of course, to help people be free. The others are very important, but it's the actual dharma which liberates us. The others are, of course, essential because You can't help someone be liberated if they are sick and hungry and bereft of any help. So they need all that. But then the dharma is the actual medicine, the actual antidote to suffering. Yeah. So just the giving is an amazing practice. We can give, we can also, of course, give many other things, give our time, give all sorts of things, you know. People who give us time, you know, who have time to listen to us, or, you know, to not be in a hurry all the time. Such people are they're like precious gems, right? If there are people in our lives who are not in a hurry and who have time to talk and to, you know, whatever, advise and help, then that is very precious. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, from the positive energy that I generate by practicing giving and the other perfections. May I attain the state of a Buddha, to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Just spend a little while reflecting on that. It may help to imagine that you are surrounded by sentient beings, mother on the left, father on the right, friends, relations behind you, and a mass of other living beings in front of you. That may be helpful. Or you can just visualize a few people who need your help, for example. Just imagine they're here with us. Here with you. And you, so it makes it, when we say all sentient beings, it's not just something abstract. It's real people, real living beings. And we can also look at it this way, that we already have so much experience of giving. All of us have given. Even though it may have been mainly to friends or relations, but we are no strangers to giving. You know? So we can engage in these practices. It's a question of gradually expanding our circle of awareness, of compassion. It's totally possible. Yeah. Okay. So then there's also in some of the prayers, there's something called special Bodhicitta, meaning, so it's like this, you know, we've, since beginning this time, it is said, we have been revolving in samsara, going from life to life, without control, controlled by the winds of karma, motivated by disturbing states of mind, especially the self-grasping ignorance, together with anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, so forth. And what is really like an atom bomb to destroy that, of course, is the wisdom realizing emptiness, but also another incredibly powerful method to destroy negative energy and negative karma, which also, of course, is indispensable for Buddhahood, is the sublime mind of great compassion, Bodhicitta. So special Bodhicitta here means that not only is it, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings, that is the Bodhicitta part of the first verse we looked at, but not only that, but quickly I must do this. So this is one place where we don't slow down. In one way, we speed up, but of course, we make haste wisely. But the point is, the people who really have a lot of understanding of suffering and who have generated a lot of compassion, they sometimes feel, the suffering of others is so unbearable, in a sense, that they very quickly want to attain the state of a Buddha. Quickly, one must attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit others. So may that happen very quickly, relatively quickly. Meaning, even if it takes 16, 20, 100 lifetimes, that's very quick, because we've had beginningless lifetimes. We cannot count our lifetimes. So to be awakened in, as they say, depending on the practice we're doing, 1 year, 3 years, 16 years, 100 years, whatever, that's very good. That's fantastic. Sita Rinpoche says, if we make 1% improvement each lifetime, that's amazing. Then in 100 lives we're enlightened. That is really something. However, it's best to be even quicker than that, because who knows what the situation will be in 100 lifetimes, where one will be, etc. So anyway, quickly, may we attain that state of mind. And so just thinking like this, just aspiring for a moment like this, is said to be very powerful. Because you see, it's not a thought we usually have. So it's introducing the germ of bodhicitta into our mind, a very powerful germ, a kind of virus which we should welcome. It infiltrates the mind and begins to eat away at the self-cherishing attitude, which is dominating us right now. Just, without our even knowing it. We may be very, very good human beings, decent human beings, but there is still that residue, very powerful residue of self-cherishing and holding on to a self. And basically, self-concern. That's very strong. Then the 7-limb prayer, which we're familiar with, some of us from the puja times. So the 7-limb prayer is to engage in the practices of prostrating, then offering, then confession, then rejoicing, then requesting the Buddhas to teach, requesting them to remain, and then the dedication of that. So let's go through the 7. So the first one, prostration. So here we bow down before all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it's like, it's being respectful, and it's like the ego mind is bowing down to the big mind, to our big mind, to our wisdom, compassion mind. We are acknowledging that the Buddha energy, that the awakened mind is something very marvelous and wonderful, and it's something worthy to bow down to. And if we can bow down, it's very good. It acts as an antidote to a very instinctive pride that we have. It doesn't want to bow down. Why should we bow down? Lots of reasons we could conjure up, the same as others, we all have Buddha nature. Why should I bow down to anyone? Like that. We might think up all sorts of things. Anyway, according to our karma, for some people, it's far easier to bow down than for others. But we can practice that, bowing down. And of course, traditionally, Some people engage in 100,000 prostrations. Not just one set, but they might do several sets of 100,000. Some people do 1,000,000. So, that can be very good. Of course, the main thing is not the numbers, but the quality of the prostrations, the state of mind. But certainly doing a lot of prostrations would be is said to be incredibly purificatory. So anyway, we can imagine bowing down to Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. And then we make offerings. We don't need, you see, the Buddhas don't need offerings because they're already enlightened and in a state of constant uncontaminated bliss. But we make offerings to create positive energy for ourselves. Opens up our own mind. We may be quite a stingy person, basically, actually, but even visualizing making offerings can help to open the mind. So imagine offering water for washing, water for drinking, delicious water for drinking, flowers, incense, light. And we can make this as beautiful as we can, as extensive and as beautiful as we can, filling the whole of space. One can put up nice lights here at Tushita, but what we can do mentally is far more. And then we offer perfume, and then food, all manner of delicious foods, and then music. So 8 kinds of offering, pervading space, pervading the whole of space. And this pervading space and being offered, you see, to all the Buddhas throughout space, because there are Buddhas throughout space. This is one, you could say, difference between basic Theravada and Mahayana and Vajrayana. For Mahayana and Vajrayana, Buddhas are pervading the whole of space, and there are countless Buddhas, countless, in all kinds of aspects, including, of course, the body, someone with a body, flesh and blood body, and there are Buddhas in the more subtle aspect, bodies of light, very subtle, which most people can't see. And then there's the all-pervasive so-called body of truth of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya. So we can imagine we are making offerings to Buddhas everywhere. And in the Samantabhadra prayer, we imagine that there are countless Buddhas in each atom. Each atom of the universe contains countless Buddhas. So like that, we can make it very extensive if we want. And what we imagine is that it's bringing uncontaminated bliss to their minds. Usually when we have pleasure or bliss, we get caught up in it, and it doesn't last long, of course, and then we want more. But for the Buddhas, they have what is called uncontaminated bliss. They have created the cause to have constant, uncontaminated by grasping Mahasukha. great bliss. And that is always combined with a state of, unbelievable, extensive compassion, and also meditative awareness that is constant. It's not like the bliss is distracting them in any way from compassion and stability of mind. So then we have the confession, limb of confession, where we recognize our negativities, and we need to remember foolish things we've done with our body, our speech, mentally. Not just foolish, some have been extraordinarily harmful for oneself and others. And since we can't remember even being born, let alone our previous lifetimes, most of us, we should recognize the teachings say that we have done everything negative imaginable in previous lifetimes. And the stains of that need purifying. They're still on the mind stream. They can give results, suffering results. So this is the first step where we generate healthy regret at negativity, and promise to at least try to reduce, or if possible, stop the negative actions that we engage in. So if we're someone who likes to criticize people behind their back or something, then we may not be able to stop immediately, but we say, okay, as much as possible, I'll stop that activity, and stop it completely for, a day, 2, 3 days, and then we could extend it. So anyway, we confess killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, idle gossip, and then mind of ill will, covetousness, ill will, and then mind full of wrong views. Wrong views such as totally denying that there could be something like cause and effect, and so forth. Or thinking that certain ascetic practices alone can confer liberation. Anyway, confession. Then the next limb is very important, rejoicing. This is so important, according to the teachers I've heard, because it really helps to uplift the mind and expand the positive energy that's already been generated through positive actions. So here, first of all, we remember some of the, as much as possible, of the good things, positive actions we have engaged in with our body, our speech, and even just mentally. Of course, everything starts in the mind. So remember even small positive actions we've done, and then rejoice, thinking how wonderful it is, how wonderful it is. And this is very important, not to neglect positive things we have done, because we often feel very impoverished, or that I can't do this, I can't do that, If I was a millionaire, I could do this or that, or whatever. But we've all done plenty of positive actions, actually, if we think about it. So remembering them, rejoice, thinking how wonderful it is. And then think of people you know, your friends, or other people, practitioners, what they do, all the good actions other people do. They don't have to be practitioners, Dharma practitioners, they can be anybody. But think of the good actions others engage in and really rejoice in that, how wonderful it is, without any sense of competitiveness or envy. So here we are counteracting envy, jealousy by rejoicing in other people's positive actions, thinking how wonderful it is. We don't have to feel small because other people do more than us. We can rejoice in it. That's wonderful that they can do what they're doing. And then also remember the real practitioners, the people who are mastering the three higher trainings of ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom, really putting effort into and practicing those, often undergoing hardships, of course, and solitude and so forth, practicing them. How wonderful it is, how wonderful. Creating causes for liberation. See, one way to make this come alive is to think of people that you see in the street every day or in the metro, and just see how, through a Dharma perspective, how, I don't know, how miserable some of them may be, or how unaware of their human potential, how caught up in various distractions. And then you think, well, people who are engaging in the causes of liberation, raising their human, I don't know, consciousness, elevating their lives so that they have that kind of experience of liberation. How wonderful that is, and how wonderful it would be if others could also, other people, many people could have that understanding and realization. You see, it's something quite extraordinary. And of course, very sad that most people don't even think about it even once, perhaps in their whole life. Okay. No. And then, of course, if you know people who are genuinely practicing the path of Bodhicitta, like some of the great masters, the gurus, male and female, it's very obvious from their lifestyle, their teachings, how they conduct themselves, the help oneself may have received from such beings. It's very clear that they have dedicated, spontaneously they dedicate their life, everything for others, to benefit others in so many ways, through teachings, through advice, through pujas, through all kinds of Dharma activities, through the way they talk with people, the way they laugh, the way, so many things. It's the way they conduct themselves. It's so amazing. Some of them don't even sleep at night. They engage in a kind of constant sort of practice and dedicated towards others, like the last two lines of the introductory prayer we looked at. The positive energy I generate through giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. They're actual embodiments of those two lines, How wonderful it is. Rejoice at that. Totally given up, this kind of any kind of small-mindedness, vast vision, which they constantly enact in their lives. It's just how wonderful it is. So that's the rejoicing limb in short. One can do it very extensively. Sometimes one could focus more just on one's own positive actions, and that way also generate a lot of positive energy about one's own potential for goodness. Then the next limb is requesting the Buddha's teachers to turn the wheel of the Dharma. It's no good if the teachers who are around don't teach. If the Dharma books are just there in the libraries, but there's no one there to kind of unlock them and teach them and inspire us through the teaching, then we are finished, And it's not just teaching from the books, but there are, as we know, those of us who have gurus, teachers, they have many skillful methods of helping us tame our minds. Sometimes very peacefully, sometimes not so peacefully, but they have many methods to dismantle our egos. As one Pema Chodron puts it, the purpose of the guru is to insult your ego. So like that, they have many ways to do that. So we request them to teach and to stay. Then the next limb is to actually not attain nirvana and go into nirvana and disappear from and to cut their connection with us, not like that, but to actually fulfill their bodhisattva vows to come back again and again and to remain in samsara to help us. There's no point if they leave the jail of samsara completely and leave us alone. We need them to come back again and again into the jail to help release us. So we pray that they stay, they abide, and don't disappear into personal peace of nirvana. So yeah, with many of the people we know, like the 14th Dalai Lama, His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, His Holiness 17th Karmapa, like that. See, at least these beings, one can trace back their lineage for 14 lives. They've been coming back again and again and again to help and teach and so forth. But of course, they stretch back much further than that. They've been engaging in this kind of activity for much longer, probably, and will engage in this until forever, until everybody's enlightened. So these are 6 limbs, and the 7th is to dedicate any positive energy. The one is generated from reflecting on these first 6. We dedicate all of this positive energy to enlightenment, or to our own enlightenment and that of all sentient beings, to the affecting the accumulation and the purification process, and thereby attaining Buddhahood. We dedicate for that to happen. Take a short break. If you need. Also, welcome to everybody who's now online. Okay. So somehow, having done these preliminary practices, it's as though it's like the difference between having a very hurried sandwich or burger in a hurry for lunch, compared to having a proper sitting down and having a well-balanced meal. Doesn't have to have 7 courses, but that kind of more leisurely thara kind of nutrition, you could say. So it's a bit like that. So rather than jumping into a meditation, you see, and then wondering why one is restless and can't focus and nothing's happening, well, perhaps the teachings would say it's because we haven't prepared the mind. And so these practices can help some people, not everyone. Sometimes it's good also, because the body and mind can be restless, to have some physical exercise, to go for a walk or a jog or something, and then to sit can be very good for some people. Of course, you finish that exercise, then you may be not totally necessary, but you may, want to wash or something, and then you sit. Then you feel a bit energized and fresh. But not absolutely necessary. Depends what kind of habit pattern we've set up. Of course, some people do yoga, which is great, and then practice after that, or some pranayama. Although, of course, if the air quality is not that good, then I'm not sure how effective sometimes the pranayama would be. Which is why it's another reason to sometimes go up into the hills or somewhere where one can engage in sort of practice in a more health-giving atmosphere. Okay, so let's sit quietly now for a little while, and then we can I'll say a few words and then we'll have some discussion. So first, let's just have 5-6 minutes quiet practice. You can reflect on what you heard up to now, or you can simply observe breath, sense of spaciousness, and relaxing with the out breath. Not getting caught up in the thinking process. Okay, so in terms of our topic, which is Buddha nature, I'll just read something, and then on the basis of that, we can have some discussion for the last 20 minutes or a bit more, okay? It's something we've read before, but it's been quite a while now, I think. A good, yeah, maybe a year even. He's talking, here we're talking about the basic practice of sitting meditation, which is described as a way of harmonizing and synchronizing body and mind as we sit, in a dignified manner and work with the breath and so forth. It's a way of synchronizing, meaning we're not just rushing around in a haphazard way, in a restless way, but we're actually engaging in a deliberate and yet relaxed action of sitting. We're not being uptight about it, but there's also discipline to it. Yeah, there's a precision to it, the practice. We can't just do anything we want, but there's also a flexibility and openness and a relaxation connected with it. Okay, so he says this method of synchronizing body and mind is training us to be very simple and to feel that you're not special, but ordinary, extraordinary. You sit simply as a warrior, and out of that, a sense of individual dignity arises. You're sitting on the earth and you realize the earth deserves you, you deserve this earth. You're there fully, personally, genuinely. So meditation practice is designed to educate people to be honest and genuine, true to themselves. In some sense, we should regard ourselves as being burdened. We do have the burden of helping this world. We cannot forget this responsibility to others. But if we take our burden as a delight, we can actually liberate this world. The way to begin is with ourselves. From being open and honest with ourselves, we can also learn to be open with others. So we can work with the rest of the world on the basis of the goodness we discover in ourselves. Therefore, meditation practice is regarded as good and, in fact, excellent way to overcome warfare in the world. Our own warfare as well as greater warfare. And in this context, I'd just like to mention that little story that I've also mentioned before, which true story of an American, some of you will remember it, an American who happened to be in Japan at the outbreak of the Second World War, or at least at a time when the relations between Japan and the USA were not good. Talking, we're talking 80 years ago. And of course, later, America, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. Anyway, before that happened, this American was trying to get a visa to get into Japan. He was already in Japan, but he had to, at the port or whatever, he had to get a visa. So he got the visa form. And I don't know, it might have been quite a complicated form, like forms can be, whatever. It's not stated in the story what kind of form it was, how complicated. But anyway, he turned the form over, was blank, okay? And then he wrote on that, drinking a cup of tea, I stop the war. Drinking a cup of tea, I stop the war, okay? This is in the context of this last line we read, yeah, that we In this way, we stop great inner warfare as well as greater warfare. When we synchronize body and mind properly. Meditation is an excellent way to overcome warfare in the world. Our own warfare as well as greater warfare. So he wrote, actually, sorry, I think making a cup of tea, not drinking. Making a cup of tea, I stopped the war. So the visa officer, a Japanese guy, right, looked at this, gave him a visa. And he said, as he gave him a visa, he said, we need more people like you in Japan right now. Of course, Japanese culture, as you may know, some of you, has this great tea culture, not like masala chai in India, but a very sophisticated, different kind of tea culture. And the whole ceremony of making tea is quite something. The so-called Zen tea ceremony, very precise and slow and unhurried and so forth. Anyway, that's what he wrote. The Japanese visa officer understood exactly what he meant, and we could discuss what he meant if it's not clear. And he said, yeah, we need more people like you in Japan right now. Because, of course, by then the war drums were beating, and there was a very militaristic culture also in Japan, which was quite strong, some of which took its energy from Zen practice, this kind of very stern, rigid kind of practice it can become. And anyway, so that was the story. Making a cup of tea, I stopped the war. Inner warfare, greater warfare, both warfares, right? And we could say that if you have enough people who are engaging in inner warfare, as there appear to be in the world, then of course there will be outer warfare. That is absolutely guaranteed. It'll happen, some kind of outer warfare, whether it's squabbling and wrestling with each other in parliamentary assemblies or whatever, or dropping bombs on one another. But war is going to happen at the outer level if there is inner lack of peace and clash caused by the disturbing emotions. Yeah. So, and all the while, of course, the Buddha nature is quietly just slumbering there, right? All the while, the Buddha nature is there. It hasn't disappeared. It's there under the hut. It's just the poor, impoverished person doesn't know it's there, so caught up with the dripping ceiling and the stink and the lack of money and lack of food in the stomach, totally caught up with those things. So is totally unaware of the hidden treasure. Sorry, I haven't left much time for discussion, but we have 15 minutes. If you wish. Drinking a mug of lukewarm tea, I stopped the war. Create another war. Wish it was hot. Wish it was. Wishy-washy tea. A very nice traveling little thermos somebody gave me. It's very useful. Okay. Anything? Hi, Elaine. Any feedback from the Punewalas?
Very nice quote, Kabirji. Thank you.
The last one, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's from Trungpa Shambhala, Sacred Path of the Warrior. chapter on discovering basic goodness. Yep.
I was just thinking about that, Kabirji, earlier when I had listening to your earlier talks also, that we at the basic level, we like when we say we're happy, we're always planning to be happy. You know, we are planning a vacation or we are planning free time. And it just shows that when we are, I think now there's a new word for dukkha. The old word dukkha has gone out of fashion. And there's a word that really comes in very handy to all of us, I think, partly, is for just manifest suffering, is stress. Every time, you know, people are using stress, even in Hindi, it's come into the helpers who come to the house, they'll say stress nahi lena, tension nahi lena.
Tension nahi lena.
Yes, and they've even started using stress because they hear it all the time.
Really? Wow.
All the time. And you know, anytime we are stressed out is the time when we're just not happy. We're not happy when we are stressed, and there are hundreds of occasions when we are stressed. So the time when we are happy is, I don't know, we keep planning it. We're just sitting at peace without stress. And that, I feel, is our basic nature. Because, I mean, your basic requirement would be to be happy. And when you settle in and know that you're not stressed out about something or making a big to-do about something or not being at war with yourself or anybody else, then you're happy. And that, I think, is a very basic nature of all sentient beings.
Why are we stressed? Why are we stressed?
Yes, so we 100 reasons that we are stressed. We are always again getting into that war of you and me, and I want and I don't want, and I like this and I don't like that. So all that I think works against us being at peace. Instead of getting us what we want, it kind of, at the end of it, makes us even more you know, not at ease. We are just not happy to be content and free of a little bit of stress. I think we all run after that.
Can you, in terms of the, Abhidhamma, or in terms of the nature of our mind, and what would be a prime reason for, what would be a basic reason for stress? Apart from, of course, self-grasping ignorance, that's, we know the root of everything, but what is the main cause that, you know, or you could put it the other way, what would be the main sort of activity or non-activity we could engage in to stop stress right now at a stroke? Is there anything?
And yes, exactly what you said, you know, making a cup of tea, I stopped the war. So you just, for a little while when you're stressed out, if you can come back to the present like you made us do and sit and just be where we are for a little while instead of grasping at whatever is going to happen or what happened and getting perturbed about that, maybe for a few minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we can go back to our basic, you know, just being aware and being in this moment. Then we are not.
So we don't, so we don't need literally to be making a cup of tea all the time, right?
No. Yeah, making a cup of tea is like doing anything, you know, I mean, just like sitting or sitting and maybe, I don't know. I think the less we do, the better it is to be able to sit and be aware of what is happening. As soon as we start doing something, then our minds get carried away with that.
Yeah, you can experiment by explaining this to your husband and see his reaction. It would be interesting. Ask him what causes stress and what the way out of stress. That would be interesting to get another take.
Yes.
Now he might say playing golf, you know.
Yes.
Playing golf mindfully, I stopped the war.
Mindfully, yes. Yes.
Anyone else? Thank you, Elaine G. Tia, thank you. Thank you, Tia. I won't call you G because you don't like it. Thank you. Bishop, good to see you. Thanks for not only taking up the burden of the morning meditations, but also joining in the evening practice. Thank you.
Namaste, Kabirji. Good to see and hear you again.
Well, yeah, sorry, I haven't shaved today, but yesterday, I think. Yeah, lacking awareness. But I am brushing my teeth. Okay.
We can see that, Kabirji.
You have written at one point attachment. At 7:50 p.m. you wrote attachment, meaning that's the main cause of stress?
Yeah, attachment and anger, the two basic.
Attachment to anything in particular? Or just
anything.
anything?
When there's attachment, there's duality. I like this, I want that, I don't want that. So with that comes sort of bias or wanting, which leads to grasping, which leads to stress. Yeah, anger, it also in a sense I feel arises from attachment, right? You're attached to something, something happens to that thing that you're attached to, or you don't get that, then anger arises.
Yeah.
Sort of feels like everything is coming from attachment there.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly muddying the water, stirring the water, and so therefore it gets.
I think Elaine ji also mentioned when we end up doing something, we stir our mind, and when we are doing something, then again it can lead to attachment.
Yeah, we don't know when to stop, do we? Stop thinking, stop moving around, stop anything. We find it difficult to stop. When the body stops, then the mind keeps going, The thoughts, I mean the thoughts. What else, folks? Anyone here at Tushita? Tushita people outnumbering online people today. Glad to say.
How many are there, Kabirji?
1, 2. Is Bob still there? Is he hiding? He's gone. Okay, Bob was here, so he's half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9.5 plus me. Yeah. Yeah, and there were, I think, 8 online at one point. Anyway, good. Very glad you're online because got so used to having a screen in front of me. I don't know that I could do anything without a screen in front of me. I'm kidding. That would be a disaster, wouldn't it? You go to a public talk and you're like, oh, I need my screen.
I have a question on attachment.
Yes, Anil, sorry.
We have our children.
Your children, yes.
We wish the best for our children, and in whatever they are pursuing. Does that attachment also cause pain? Because I thought that's a good attachment.
Yeah, I think it's good. You take care of them, but then if you are wanting them, have lots of expectations of them, and and want, have a lot of grasping and wanting connected with them, could be a bit suffocating for them and disappointing for you if they don't fulfill what you want for them or what you want them to do for you.
Here I don't want anything that they need to do for me. Just that I feel happy as they, as they do well in whatever they are pursuing.
Yeah.
Or engaging with, people. So I just feel sometimes that attachment is there, but it's in a good way and not a negative way. I think I'm not wanting to control.
Yeah. it's a tricky one. That some might say, well, a test would be that if you have next door neighbors who also have children,
Yeah.
and they move away to another country, how do you feel? And then if your own children come to you and say, well, Dad, I'm thinking of emigrating to another country, then how do you feel? You can see, is there a difference? If your own kids want to move away and the neighbors' kids want to move away, why is there such a difference? They're just children. I mean, they are sentient beings just like your children. Why is there a different reaction? Why is there that strong pull? Well, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And someone who didn't care for their children, saying that, well, I don't care for a child in Bolivia, so why should I care for my children? People wouldn't regard that as good logic, and I wouldn't. But maybe there's a line. When we cross that, it becomes very clingy and based a lot on an exaggeration somehow of my children, my children. And so if there's my children, then I guess, like anything, my thermos, my laptop, my friend, my book, then it becomes a bit clingy, sticky. But if that's not there, then fantastic. But there'll always be, in a sense, the children, your children, in that sense, whom you looked after and carried when they were tiny and stuff like that. Of course, there'll be different flavor from, well, yeah, I was going to say from interacting with other children. But at a certain point, some people might generate a very equal sort of sense towards all children. It depends. We're very different. People are very different. Some people are just more detached in a positive way, not in a bad way. Some people are need more constant emotional sort of feedback from their children and people they know. Some people are much more relaxed about it and, cool in that sense. It depends very much on our own mental constitution, I think, whether we're much more of a thinking type, a feeling type, or, what, and how much maybe we've trained our minds. Because I don't think children or parents want anyone who's too clingy. Even children who are too clingy, it's nice probably when they're infants, and you want them to cling to you and run up to you when they need help, but you don't want that to happen when they're 25 or 30, right? Necessarily. You might sometimes, but it would get a bit much. So I think attachment can be sticky. It's a sticky state of mind. You kind of can't let go. If you're constantly thinking and worrying about your children, then that's maybe not such a great sign. Of course, there could be good reasons for worrying about them if they're in real trouble. But if you're just constantly, they're in your thoughts, I'm not sure how healthy that necessarily is.
And here it's not so much as worried about them, but just happy as they perform or they do well. So, if they call me and tell me that I worked on this project and I got appreciated, it just makes you feel very happy and nice. And for them to become more independent, to having their own.
Okay.
So in a way, it's not being attached, but at the same time, trying to feel happy as we progress.
Khalil Gibran, the great Lebanese sage, mystic, whatever, in his book, The Prophet, he says, your children are not your children. They are an expression of life's longing for itself, something like that. That's quite interesting. Your children are not your children. You just happen to be a vehicle for them to come into the world. But I mean, in that sense, how much is anything really belonging to us? If we and that object, whatever person, are changing moment by moment, and there's definitely going to be a moment when we have to part from them forever, then what is really ours, what is mine? And if there's no real independent self or person solidly is the way we think, then what does that do to my children? It would be considered a hallucination. It's a merely labeled child who, yes, came out of my merely labeled wife or partner's body, or from a merely labeled test tube or whatever, with my merely labeled sperm and a merely labeled egg. Merely labeled meaning they're also not as solid or as we think. They are also elements which are changing moment by moment and more spacious than we think, like that. Yeah, okay. Thanks for coming, our old dear friends, Nandita and Sujiti, and we'll be dedicating for your brother. Hope we see you again. Can you come tomorrow? Not sure, probably. Yeah. Anyway, we'll be having a puja, and we'll remember you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Take care.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, great. So the good news, talking about happiness is always in the future, is that we are ordering pizza at home tonight for my auntie and her 2 children and myself and our cook. But I told them I also want some rice and dal because pizza, it doesn't agree with me too much. All that flour, white flour, but it's Nirula pizzas are good. So yeah, you're right, Elaine. Happiness is in the future. Huh? Definitely. Near future, hopefully. Like half an hour away. Isn't that amazing? We should dedicate now so that I don't miss the pizza. So yeah, we should dedicate for the sentient beings whom we know and those that we don't know, because they're all in a state of tremendous danger, really, because in samsara, anything can happen. And when we die, it's very uncertain what's going to happen. And of course, even while we're alive, we're not happy. There's no lasting contentment. And then when we die, again, problem. It's not like we're released into some kind of heaven automatically. Nothing like that in Buddhism. It's understanding of things. So we must dedicate that beings have more and more opportunity to understand their minds and to tame their minds through the practice of the Dharma. May we engage, or may we help others as much as possible to do this. May the teachings and the great teachers last for a very long time. May they remain with us. Also, there's specific people to pray for, like Sumit, who is Sujit's brother, who very urgently needs a kidney transplant. So may all the resources come together that for that to happen. It's very expensive procedures. So may that happen for Sujit's brother, and therefore also all the problems, the tension, anxiety in all the minds be alleviated. Then all the other people we know who are sick or ill or dying or very unhappy, may they become well and happy. May they causes and conditions arise for them to be happier, or calm and clear. Inner causes, outer causes, both. May we reflect on the 7 limb prayers occasionally, especially the limbs of confession and rejoicing, but also the others as well. May we recognize that unskillful action clouds Buddha nature, makes it delays even further its manifestation in our life. and therefore delays our awakening, our ability to be of great benefit to others. So may we engage as much as possible in that which is wholesome. That which is beneficial for others, beneficial for oneself. So may everybody be well and happy, and as Shantideva says, may beings think of benefiting one another. Simple statement, but very powerful, very meaningful, especially nowadays. So may people think of benefiting one another. May that lead to peace where there is war, and one can only pray that and aspire that due to more inner harmony, the whole planet may be in a state of greater harmony and less danger than it is in now. Okay, thank you all very, very much, those online and everyone here, Tushita. Thank you very much. So puja
Thank
tomorrow,
you.
6:30. Puja tomorrow, 6:30, those who can join.